Hello, my name is Luke and this is a devlog. After recently finishing up a game project called Paper Defender, I realised something. I've been making games now for going on 6 months, and I've only made 2D games. So, like Luke Skywalker when he got home to find his aunt and uncle had died in a freak barbecue accident, I felt that call to action. I must learn 3D. It seems so hard. In my real life, I've had all sorts of troubles trying to move into the next dimension, so how the hell was I going to do it in a game? I started out where all good game devs start. I googled it, which led me right into Unity's warm and comforting bosom. Unity have got all sorts of tutorial teats on their website for newborn game devs to suckle on, and I myself latched onto a couple of the beginner 3D courses. First one was a simple first-person shooter tutorial, which, I have to be honest, didn't really teach me all that much. If you were brand new to the engine, then it would be great to get a behind-the-scenes view of a game and a closer look at what all those moving parts are. But given that I've already spent half a year within Unity pretty much every single day, I already know, what a game object is, how to attach a script, how to export a build. But if you are a complete starter with game dev, then this would be a fantastic first tutorial. After that, I jumped into the next 3D tutorial on the list, John Lemon's Haunted Jaunt. This was a stealth game tutorial, and my biggest takeaway really was just how powerful Unity's post-processing effects are. A game that can look so lifeless and boring can be altered and tweaked and pumped full of life and tone. The tutorial may have suffered from the same problem as the first-person shooter tutorial, but it was a little more advanced and it gave me a big confidence boost. It seemed that making scripts to make 3D objects move really wasn't that different to making 2D objects move. Instead of writing vector 2, you just write vector 3. Easy. At that point I thought maybe I'll find another tutorial, but I caught myself because I realised something. I was being a massive wimp. The only reason I was looking for another tutorial was because I was being scared. So why not set myself a challenge and start working on something without a tutorial? That same morning, I saw the news about the Tony Hawk's skateboarder remakes and figured, hey, why not remake my own Tony Hawk's game? So I figured I would give myself a day to, as best I can, remake the Tony Hawk's Pro Skateboard game. I knew it would be difficult. I didn't really know it would be as difficult as it was. I opened up a new Unity project. I grabbed a couple of models from a fresh asset pack I got by signing up to Game Dev Unlock's mailing list and started working on Tiny Hawk's Faux Skateboarder. I made my little guy, Tiny Hawk, move with some scripts, and I couldn't find or be bothered to find a good skateboard model, so I made a skateboard out of like a crate with some creative scaling. Then I gave it my best Tony Hawk's camera movement with Unity's Cinemachine, and boom, we have a sort of skateboarding sort of guy thing. I planned on adding ramps and all sorts of extra bits, and I did manage to get my guy to do a little ollie, but I quickly realised that the physics were extremely difficult. My guy was really floaty, and for some reason whenever he bumped into something he wouldn't stop spinning around on the spot. I did manage to add some ramps and stuff, and I was hoping to maybe add a flip trick, and I didn't think that would be too hard. I could use the animator to do that. But by then the day was getting late and I was tired, and I figured this will do. I've pretty much exhausted my skill set. Some turds should remain unpolished. Yeah! If anything, making Tony Hawk's Faux Skateboarder just made me appreciate the physics in the original Tony Hawk's games all that much more. There's so much to it to get something to give a really tactile feel, to give something momentum, and to make it feel like it's got weight to it. It's really impressive, which led me to my next experiment. I've seen a few people on YouTube talking about something called Mixamo. There's all these great looking character models and animations, and I thought this would be an interesting little experiment. Let's download one of these characters and see if we can get them moving on screen. I went on there and found myself a guy called Brian. Brian looked just like a nice guy, maybe a little down on his luck. Maybe he didn't get downloaded all that many times, I thought. Maybe he was a little jealous of the more handsome or more characterful models on there. Maybe Brian was just a little lonely guy, but not a bad guy, maybe a little introverted. So suddenly feeling quite sorry for Brian, I downloaded him and I slammed him into a brand new Unity project. After playing around with some of Mixamo's animations, I managed to get Brian to walk around like a man walking home drunk from the nightclubs. I empathise with this. I too have walked around like a man walking home drunk from a nightclub. I too was like Brian. And I thought what Brian really needs is a surreal nightmare world. Personally, I love films like David Lynch's Eraserhead and Tetsuo the Iron Man, and specifically the look and feel of those films. And I found that I could take a really boring plain Jane scene and give it a lot of life with Unity's post-processing. Even with all these standard assets and the standard lighting and skybox, the post-processing adds so much flavour to the game. And sometimes you look at all these games out there, all these amazing 3D beautiful games, and they've got fantastic lighting and modelling, and they're all well and good. I'm just never going to be able to get things to look as good as those, not without paying a fair bit of money to get the assets and that kind of thing. But I'm a big fan of kind of using what you have in a creative way to make a good looking picture. So when I started to play with the post-processing and I had in my mind Eraserhead and Tetsuo the Iron Man, I was really trying to recreate that really gritty filmic look. I couldn't quite get the flicker of the 24 frames per second flicker, but I could get the grain and I could get the really the bloom that those films had, and the really heavily contrasted black and white. So maybe a couple of days after I've been playing in this world, making weird stuff happen, I realised that this was going to have to be my next game project. Brian, a sort of Lynchian, Silent Hill-esque surreal nightmare about a man called Brian. I'm really inspired by this grainy, gritty Dadaist vibe, and I'm going to follow it to try and make something of a short, exploratory, creepy-ass game. So I'm currently working on the base mechanics of this game and the enemies, and I feel like I'm really going to learn a lot about 3D from this project, and I'm really excited to see where it takes me. So the next few weeks I'll be posting some devlogs all about Brian and his journey deeper and deeper into the weird world of his own brain. If you've got any tips or tricks or advice on how I could go about this project, please comment below and let me know. I honestly really don't know what I'm doing. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and want to follow along. I have to say, I'm really excited about game dev as a whole right now. I'm feeling really hopeful about it. It feels like such an openly amazing world in which you are only limited by your imagination and your own resources. So, hold on tight guys, we're living in our own surrealist dark nightmare world at the moment, it seems, and all we can do is focus on the positive by making things, creating art, and putting out that which did not exist before. So take care, I'll talk to you soon.